Hello everyone, today we are back with 5 things that will help you in raids, and actually this will apply to things like Grandmaster Excision, which I'm sure a lot of people will be LFGing in the coming days, as well as even dungeons as well. So while this is geared towards people who might be LFGing Salvation's Edge in the near future, or who are getting back into Destiny and might not know the ins and outs of everything, this is geared towards just trying to get stuff done. And before I get these 5 little tidbits into your brain, I just want to put 2 things forth, right? These aren't in order of importance. It's really just, I mean, they all have varying levels of importance anyways, but note that at the end of the day, these are just to help you overall. There isn't one that's gonna make you a better raider. It's just, again, to promote team play and just in general help you with your raid game if you are in fact a new or returning player. First and foremost, you need to make sure that you check your ego at the door when it comes to raids. There are, and this isn't really targeted towards newer players because you might not have as big of an ego as people who have been playing the game for longer, but what does that mean? Basically it means if I'm on whatever character and we don't have someone who has divinity and we need a divinity to get it done, say we're doing something like Taniks where div isn't necessarily required, but if you're using linears or snipers to kill Taniks, you're probably going to need a divinity to make it easier. And your ego would be like, oh, I'm going to use Still Hunt because I want the most amount of damage. Well, no, you need to run div because you're the only one who has it, and you're not, let's say, a hunter, whereas a hunter using Still Hunt can get more damage off in a shorter amount of time, and a Titan using div, or even a Warlock, I'm not dogging on Titans, like, Titans do have some really good DPS methods, but let's just say, in this instance, there's no Warlocks, and we have only a Titan, which is a bad raid setup in and of itself. But let's say, whatever, it doesn't matter what you're on, you need the div, so you slap the div on, and you take the L. Damage-wise, you slap some ad clear in your heavy and a decent primary weapon to help people out, and boom, you guys get the clear because, again, you have the div to get the debuff, and that, in fact, allows your team to do damage. It could be running something like Tractor, like, let's say you're on the second encounter of Salvation's Edge and you're facing the Herald of Finality, a Tractor just messes him up. That is another example of just checking your ego at the door. You're doing whatever the team needs, not what's going to get you at the top of the damage leaderboard. This can go for running your super as well. Let's say you slap on Bubble Titan so that you can have a bubble for damage. Let's say for some reason you don't have a well, which can happen. It shouldn't happen, but it can. And you run a bubble for damage to give your team that little extra buff. And if that's what's needed, then that's what's needed, you know, and even if you have to come over here and go down to change character, even if you have to do that to switch to a war, let's say you're the only guy who has a Warlock on your team, or whoever, you're the only person with a Warlock. If you have to do that, then you do it. And that's that. And that kind of leads well into our next bullet point here, which is be ready to give and take criticism. Now, you should dish out this criticism in a polite manner, especially if you're with people you're LFGing with or you don't know that well, just so it doesn't seem like you are being rude towards them or singling them out. You can just say something like, hey, you know, make sure that everyone has a rocket on. We're using galley, we need rockets on. I'm not trying to single anyone out. Just so I noticed there's a couple people not running rockets. Let's change that. Or let's say it's a solar surge, and not everyone's running solar surges on their boots to increase their damage. It's free 10%. You just say, hey, everyone double check your armor mods, which that's a whole different thing we'll get in towards the end. You definitely want to make sure that people, especially if you're on a master version of a raid, in normal it doesn't matter as much, but it does help. And when you take criticism, try and do it graciously because, you know, at least for me, I'm not a professional raider. I do raid a lot, but I don't raid enough to the point to where I would say I'm like Salta Greppo or Dado. So of course, when someone tells me I might be doing something wrong or not quite as efficiently, then I'm going to listen to that person and try to maybe change up how I play. I'm always looking for new ways to get better, and especially with a new raid, there are new mechanics that are like very dissimilar to older mechanics throughout Destiny. So as the Destiny boomer that I am, which is weird to say, you know, I do have to be somewhat open to taking that criticism, because I'm not doing stuff right sometimes, and I need to hear that in order for the team to be more successful. Next up, we have the double P method here, that patience and positivity will help you in the long run. I cannot tell you the last time. I mean, I've like a fairly positive raid group. I mean, sometimes when you're just not doing a certain thing right, or you're consistently failing at an encounter, you know, Pantheon comes to mind. A lot of people had trouble with Atrax. A lot of people had trouble with Nezarec, because that was actually a really hard fight for some people. And patience is being, you know, patient in the face of someone maybe failing a mechanic. Positivity is trying to, even though maybe you're not getting the damage consistently, you just say, hey, all we have to do is make sure ads are clear and keep doing the mechanic the right way, and we'll get to damage, and we'll be able to see where we're at after that. You know, being positive will get you a long way. I remember recently when our clan got our first clear of salvations, we were having a lot of issues with dying during damage, because damage is such a dodge heavy damage phase. It's almost like a Souls boss, where you constantly need to be moving and paying attention to the witness's attacks. And we finally got to a point where nobody died during a damage phase, and that's how you knew, like, good, like, you get that positive reinforcement after that damage phase, and you're like, good job guys, nobody died. Our damage was good, because again, everyone was alive, and you're like, okay, all we have to do is do that again, and, you know, we're one phase away from final stand, or we're right at final stand's door, and you know, we'll get there relatively quick. Which, man, the witness has such a short final stand. There's like no reason to not 3-phase, because if you get him down to just a little bit of health, you can knock that small amount off with primary ammo if you wanted to, and then just unload supers and heavy in that very short final stand frame there. But yeah, try not to seep too much into negativity if you can help it. You know, if you are having a lot of trouble with one particular encounter, you might need to shake things up. And next thing is, don't panic, right? This is a video game. Yes, it can be hard. And yes, sometimes there are stakes involved, like, say, it's the only night that you can raid and you really want to get it done. But sometimes, you know, maybe an encounter is just not meant to happen, or maybe a group just isn't gelling together, and, you know, panic can set in, and that's when a raid can go from, man, this sucks, to, man, this really sucks, and I don't want to be here anymore. And sometimes it's all just in your head, and, you know, it goes back to being more positive if you can help it. But if you're in an LFG group, and again, things don't seem to be making progress, you either have to step up and give some criticism to whatever you think the problem is, or just leave the group. As bad as that sounds, you know, those are your options. I don't think you should leave the group unless you want to. I mean, I can't stop anyone from leaving an LFG, but those are your options, and hopefully you figure it out eventually. But yeah, sometimes it's tough. It's tough out there. But if you panic and, you know, you start to think that, oh, we're never going to get this done, that kind of goes back into the positivity portion. But yeah, just don't panic. Panic, patience, positivity. Do the last two, but not the first one, okay? And definitely remember to have fun. This is a video game. It's meant to be fun. And even though sometimes when you're raiding and you're trying to get it done, it's not fun, you just have to try and make it fun. You know, crack a joke, as cheesy as that sounds. Last but certainly not least, please, pretty please check your armor mods. Run the corresponding resists. If you're on Atrax, there's no reason you shouldn't have either 3 arc resists on, or 2 arc and a sniper, or something like that, because, man, that encounter sucks. When you're in any higher difficulty version of it, it's a cakewalk on normal, but you get the point. Nezarec, you might want to run a Void. Solar, I think, is another one you can run on Nezarec. Also, there's no reason why you should not have a reserves chestplate. I'll try to put a clip in here, but most people know that you get so much more ammo on certain guns when you reserve or rally with a reserves chestplate on. I just have like a default chestplate on all my characters that is reserves only. That way I know when I swap it on, I rally, I take it back off to put my reserves chestplate on, which does mean, yes, sometimes I forget to put my resist chestplate back on, but the extra ammo is good. And make sure you run ammo, scouts, and finders if you don't have a Cenotaph or an Aeons. That kind of goes the same for it's kind of the same for a reserves chestplate. You might not need it as much if you are running a Cenotaph, or someone is running a Cenotaph or Aeons. You don't need as much ammo, right? As for, honorable mentions, I don't really have any, but if you are a new or returning player, I definitely just suggest going into it with the ambition of having fun. Watching a guide, especially if you're doing Salvation's Edge, I highly recommend. But most people who are doing carries most likely will know how to teach you in a certain respect. At least I hope so. I was thinking about making a guide video, but there are so many out there. If you, for some reason, don't know how to search in a YouTube bar, I can link one in the description, but I don't think that'll be necessary. These are just, again, 5 things that I think will help people get raids done. Comment down below anything you think that I missed that might be as important, if not more important than anything in this short little list. And good luck raiding out there, Guardians, and I'll see you next time.